Hello, welcome to the Invoice Workflow demonstration. My name is John Lincoln. I work in pre-sales here at Columbus. If you've got any questions throughout, please even just type them in and then we'll do our best to answer them at the end if we have time. If not, we'll get back to you afterwards. We'll start off with a few slides to set the scene, then we'll go into the software, and at the end we're going to watch a YouTube clip about OCR. If there's any problems throughout, can you please just type them in the questions. Okay, so Invoice Workflow was written by our sister company, To Increase, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Why should we consider Workflow? There's three main reasons as listed there. Highly flexible with regard to the invoice routing and approval, easily deployed, and the automation of the approval and prompt handling and escalations. Moving on from that, some of the key benefits: the time the reduced costs related to the processing, the strengthening of supplier relationships, the accuracy, the remote approvals, customized workflows where we can start incorporating in dimensions for departments and approvals, things like that. And it says the last thing there, we can approval processing for mobile devices like smartphones and tablets. This is sort of an overview of really how it all works, it comes together. So if you look at the top left, this is where our invoices come in. So it could be a physical paper copy that appears and then it's run through some sort of OCR, or it could come in as an XML file or EDI file. It then goes into the automatic process, which is the validation and the import. You can see there it validates obviously vendor, currency, whether it's a PO or a non-PO invoice. It then routes back actually into AX then, into the invoice workflow there, where we're looking at multi-company handling. So this is where you can have a centralized purchasing service. The invoice registered. Now, depending on the validation rules, it can either go down to the workflow in order to send out for approval, or it can be automatically posted if of intolerance, and then it can go through and be ready for payment. And there's also some stats on the time used and the processing of the invoice. These are some of our existing customers from To Increase. You'll notice most of them are actually from the Baltic and the European countries, where this sort of processing is more the norm. To Increase have got some case studies. These are three ones they're picked out. Maxin says they generate over or process over 1 million invoices per year. They're the biggest department store chain in Denmark, and they're part of the Debenhams group. Next one there is a good example where we've got shared services. So Hemphill, they do coatings. They do 25,000 invoices a month over 53 AX legal entities. And the last one there, Scandinavian Tobacco Group, another one, just 14,000 invoices per month. So quite a lot of high volumes being pushed through there. So with the invoice workflow, we have some predefined security roles for you there, and you can see there administrator, approver, marketer, etc. They're set up for you already. There's some additional settings regarding the vendor and the accounts payable, but the key thing really is it's just following on from the standard functionality of AX, so that doesn't actually change. And you'll see there that on the bottom right against supplier 1001, we've got some additional defaults there regarding what type of invoice normally comes from there. Are there specific workflow groups, specific approvers, and do you want to actually create a dedicated posting rule, which we'll come back to in a bit later on. Inventory management, we've also got some parameters there about services must be received. So from a processing point of view, there's two real types of invoices. There's a cost invoice, so that's an invoice without a purchase order, and there's actually an invoice related to a purchase order. And we'll look at this in a bit more detail later on, but different rules can be set up depending on what type of invoice it is. You can have multiple invoice types per type of invoice. Approvers, so these are the people that actually obviously sign off and approve the invoices. There's two ways you can create those, from the users or from workers, if you've got the HR switched on and we're using that. Once created, we can then get into the realms then of actually using dimensions to actually assign workflow. So if one of your dimensions is, for example, a department or a cost center, individuals can be specifically assigned to approve certain dimension values. Okay. They can also be assigned to specific companies within AX, and we can also assign conditional approvers and also delegations for holidays and vacations, things like that. So this really deals with the monetary levels. So these are authority levels. So you may have someone that can only spend up to or approve up to £1,000 or £10,000, £50,000. These can be defined within the workflows. So it's pointless sending an invoice for approval if it is actually above your approval limit. And it's mentioned there as well, you can use this in relation to the dimensions, cost centre department, etc. External client, so they don't need to be a full-blown user of AX. They can have the external client, which I'll show you later on, and you can approve, see all the details exactly as if you were in the actual bridge client. And that's the example of the external client screenshot. I must add, this demo is going to be done in AX 2012, just to let you know. It is available in D365 as well. We'll see there we're drilling down from a line actually opening up the physical invoice in front of us. From a workflow point of view, there's a bit more flexibility than the standard AX product. So this is where we can bring in, as I mentioned before, the dimensions and also the spending limits and policies. We can define when email should be sent out, and also for different types of approval and escalation paths as well. It uses its own document management functionality, so not of AX's, because clearly you wouldn't want millions of PDFs of invoices clogging up your database. And we can either link them to a SharePoint site, or we can just use network folders to save them into. The email notifications, these are defined by yourself using little hooks and tags. As you can see there, we're bringing in tags from the vendor table and also the invoice table and the invoice date, etc. Various templates, which we'll look at a bit later on. So reminders, escalations, and standard mail notifications. The importing of the invoices, this is where we start bringing in either through EDI or bringing in through PDFs using an OCR. You'll see there that some formats come as standard, so LaserNet and ReadSoft. There's also others out there as well. And we just basically use the mapping to map from the actual invoice to the physical fields within AX. The import of the file should be done in a batch routine, and then that can just picked and pulled whenever you want to and imported in. So the main screen that the AP person will be working is this cost invoice overview screen. It's split into various sections. So the list there of all the invoices going through, toggle up and down with any matching statuses. At the bottom left we have any posting details. If it's associated with a purchase order, then clearly there'll be none there. And over on the bottom right we have the approval status of the actual workflow within there. And from any of those lines we can click on the documents button on the top right, and that will then bring up an image of it. If it's been brought in as a EDI file and there is no actual invoice, it can generate an invoice for you just to look at, make it easier to view. So from some more information on here, so we can edit certain fields in terms of payment and specifications. That's exactly the same as standard AX. We also set a different posting rule up. This is where we define where the general ledger postings go to with dimensions as well. As I mentioned there earlier on, if you want to use dimensions in the hierarchy for workflow approval, they've got to be within your account structure. So that's something to think about. The AP review, so it's actually two real stages here. The first stage is the invoice being imported in or manually entered, of course. It then goes through a case mastering. This is where the accounts payable person says, yes, I'm happy with this. I'm now going to close it, and that's then moved off to review. You have the option to reject if you want to, reject it back to the vendor. That's an option you've got there. Or you can redirect it. You can say, I don't particularly want to approve this, or I shouldn't approve this. I'm redirecting to someone else. You'll see there an audit trail is kept in the notes section on the right, and also on the bottom right to say why it's been redirected and who it's been directed to. Once everything's happy, you can click on the approve button and it will just post through. As standard X, it reverse out any accruals that were initially posted with the transaction. You can do fixed asset invoices as you can with standard, and you can also do project invoices as well. So from that point of view, exactly as standard. Purchase order invoices, the logic is basically the same as the non-PO invoices, but a couple of things. The PO's got to be created and confirmed, and the product receipt. We can process an invoice up to a certain point without a receipt, but best practice probably defines that's not a good idea. The registration, I say it follows the same steps as before, and you can, if security allows, update any coding, but again, we wouldn't recommend that. That should be really picked up from the posting profile of the items. It will go through and it will try and match based on the rules set up in the rest of AX. So whether it's a three-way match or a two-way match, and you'll see there a little icon status there saying what the matching status is. Clearly these aren't very good because there's actually no vendor accounts in any of them, which is why it's not very happy. It flags up in quantity as well as value items as well. Just as standard, you can add miscellaneous charges to them, so it's standard functionality. And of course, we've got the tolerances based on whether you want it to auto-approve and if it needs to go off to approval. Missing receipts, sometimes you will get a situation where if you're, especially VDI invoices coming in, the invoice may arrive for all the physical goods due, so the matching can't take place. These can be saved in basically a holding area and an automatic batch set up to run every day or whatever, and it will pick up and process the invoice when the goods receipt has finally come in. Okay, at the end we're going to watch an example of how the OCR works, because that's really the really clever part of this, and that's at the very end. It only takes 10 minutes or so, so we'll look at that and how you can actually set up that to work and guide you through it. So we'll click into software now. So you'll see there that this is AX 2012. Invoice Workflow has its own menu structure, and you'll see there the screen is layout is very similar to all the others. So we'll quickly go through some of the setups and then we'll look at some of the transactions and putting them through. I mentioned before about the different types of invoices. So this is in the type of invoice is either a cost invoice, i.e. no purchase order, or with a purchase order. And we can set up various rules going across whether you want to approve automatically, transfer the payment automatically, i.e. does accounts payable need to post it. And also we can start defining any deviation percentages going across there. Against each type of cost invoice, we can also specify our individual workflow group. So multiple groups can be in play at the same time. We click on the General tab. A few more parameters there around the rules around the approval and the redirecting. Automation point of view, we can actually default in who normally would be approving or entering these invoices, which may be useful, may not be. And a list of approvers. Now this really comes down to your individual approvers, what the cost type of the invoice is, and also their group they're in and the spending limit. So Alicia, for example, here, she can approve cost type invoices up to 500, Brad could be 5,000, Susan 50,000, and Inga is unlimited. So we can start defining the values to which they can approve up to. So we look at the procreation groups. This goes into more details. We saw before we had 500, 5,000 and unlimited based on the people. And we'll see there obviously we've got minuses as well for any credit note values going on. Dimension groups. This is where we can use dimensions such as cost center department to control who can approve for various departments. So we see there we've just got a few set up, so between department 20 and 29, 30 and 39 and all, and these are then assigned to the approvers so we can see actually who they can actually approve for and in which companies as well. So we go down to look at the workflow. I mentioned before about the definitions. So these definitions are assigned to the actual cost type of the invoice, and as we scroll down, they're all relatively simple, but you can see there in this example, the first there's the mastering, so the entering and approval. Once the accounts payable person is happy with that, they will then close it and it'll be sent off for approval, and the approval will then look at what their spending limits are, what dimensions they're allowed to approve, and it will route to the appropriate person automatically. There can be additional steps in here as well, but this is a relatively simple two-stage process for approval. Okay, so last thing to quickly look at is email templates. So if I look at the invoice approval, we'll click onto that and look at the email message. You'll see an example what it looks like. So we've got our hooks back to the data in the actual transaction, and some text we've just written in. So when this is sent off for approval, then this is what will appear on an email, and then you can just click on the link below and that will take you into the external client where you can approve and view the invoice. So the main screen is the invoice overview, and we have had comments before from various people that the actual entering AP invoices can be a bit confusing where you potentially have 2 or more different screens. This can all be done from the same screen here, whether it's a purchase invoice or a purchase order. Let the system catch up for a bit. So on the top, very top, we've got all our filtering. So you can see here, I'm just looking at open transactions on the system. So I can look then to see actions, the next step. I can look at types, workflow groups, different approvers, and different companies as well. You'll see there we've got 3 transactions there, and associated against each transaction we have some additional information down there. So this first invoice is being split in these various departments, so that's going to sales and marketing, and that's going to operations and operations. So we split it obviously by dimension, the allocation split. Next one down, that's actually from a purchase order, and we'll see there that it's actually got a little flag there that says I'm out of tolerance. If we start looking back at this, look at the invoice lines, we can see there that this is the invoice cost it's come in at. If I look at the log, that tells me that the line amount I've entered was 6,000, but the actual purchase order was a 4,495, which is outside the tolerance that has been defined. Therefore, it has actually come up with an out of tolerance, an error. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put in a brand new transaction on. I'll enter this manually, but obviously if you had an OCR coming in, then this will be picked up and put on for you. So file, new. Enter our vendor, or look it up. The cost and the workflow group will default automatically. If I'm linking to a purchase order, I can click on that and it will just give me the purchase orders. I'm just going to put an invoice straight on. So it doesn't matter what it is, put it on. Document date, today's date, and scrolled across here, and we put an amount in. So I'll put 50,000. Tag off. As soon as I click save on there, it's automatically picked up who should do the mastering and the approved routes. Now, because this is a demo and I don't want to log into other users, I'm going to enter it and approve it, which clearly would not be the case normally. No posting rules have been set up or default ledger accounts, so I need to enter mine in with any dimension values as you'd expect and any tax or VAT information. To manually add a document, I click over to here and I go, right, I'm going to add a file, then pick it up from wherever. And then obviously that will just create the file there for you, linked against the document. When I'm happy, I've entered the details correctly, I go as my master and click on close. And it says, right, okay, according to the workflow, this is going to go to admin as my next approver. I can change that if I want to. And you'll see it's only giving me an option of 2. That's because it comes down to the spending limits or the approval limits, sorry. So only Inga and I have the ability to actually approve anything at 50,000 or above. So that's why there's only 2 names on there. And any notes you may want to put in. And click OK. Now that's going to go away and it's going to post a transaction for you. So this is your accrual, especially speaking, or the invoice register postings. And if you want to look at the postings it's made, it's inquiries and voucher transactions. And there it is. Now, if we'd have used some OCR to pick this up or we've had EDI, this would have happened automatically. I'm just showing you now the manual way that you would actually go through and create it. Okay. So it's been sent its way off to me, and now I'm, from my approving point of view, I can approve it. I can change the status to one of those. I can redirect it to somebody else. Again, I can only redirect this to Inga because of the approval levels. Info, if I want to send this to someone for information, so I'm going to send it to Brad just for info. invoice has come in. That will appear as a message for Brad to actually, just for information purposes only. You can see there the little tick box there that says for information only. Okay, so I'm just going to approve this now. Okay, so that's basically been approved. And the final step is to post it. Now, you can actually automate this task. In this case, I haven't, but that can be automatically posted. So I'll post that. So it's gone through. Okay. So from a data entry point of there, I think it's actually a lot slicker than through the standard AX. So click on close. Okay. If I look at my vendor transactions, and transactions, and there's 50,000 I just put on, and obviously we've got the initial posting of the register or accrual, we've got the reversing of that accrual out, and then we've got the final posting. Obviously there's no VAT on this transaction. Okay, so that was a quick overview of the setups and the processing a transaction through. I'm just going to show now a YouTube video which explains how we can set up the templates in order for the OCR software to read the invoice and then transfer that back actually into AX. Sorry, hold on a second. Oh, sorry, before I go, yeah, sorry. The external client, and there's something I missed out. This is what the external client looks like, and as we can see there, this is the same purchase order that we had on our previous screen. I put a filter in just for the purchase orders this time, and if we click on the lines, we can see there that we've got our lines of 6,000 and the tolerance as well. So let me just start this up.
Short example demonstration of LaserNet input management. This is to be used as a starter to be able to build a demonstration for customers, but should give the main points on how the solution actually works. So first of all, we're going to start with the core, which is our LaserNet build. This is a standard LaserNet build with some inputs, some engines, and some outputs. Inputs into the solution are where we receive data in. So here you can see we're taking an input from a particular file location. We could take in from multiple files. We can also take in from FTP folders. So a number of different ways, and then we can actually draw the workflows and create the system to be able to get the data in the right format and also out in the right format. It then goes through some engines for processing and finally ends up on some kind of output. Again, here you can see we've got file output, but equally we could have multiple ones of those, or if we needed to email the information out to somewhere, again, we can do that, and we draw the workflows to build up the system and the solution as we need it. In the middle here, as I said, we've got some engines. This is our core to the input management. It's our OCR engine. If I double click on this, inside here there is a bit of configuration, as we can see, but also it gives the standard central area where we hold all the different document types. So here we've got an invoice and a passport as two different types of scan document that we can take in. The invoice has got a certain number of fields that you can see here, and the passport has some different fields that we need to capture. These fields here also relate to an internal XML. So once these fields have been filled in using our OCR template editor, which I will show you in just a moment, this will create an internal XML file that then goes through the actual system to the form engine. So first of all, let's take a look at what it looks like from a user's point of view in terms of the actual system completely working, and then I'll show you some more setup of the actual forms in a moment. So today we're going to take three different examples. The first one of these is a text-based document. So this here has come into the organization. It's text-based because you can see I can select the information off the page. It's been produced by some form of output management, such as LaserNet output management, and has been generated and sent in potentially via email. Here what I can do is, if once I've got this file, I can copy it into a particular folder that is being monitored. Now what's going to happen is, in the background, the actual information is going to be taken from this PDF file. So we will see in just a moment that essentially the text will be brought out, thrown into LaserNet. That will generate an XML file, and as you will see, it will come out the other end into our ERP solution. So if I open that up, we'll see the text has been taken, thrown through the software, some of the fields have been filled in, and we get our XML that needs to be output to the actual ERP system. So that was a very quick text one. Here I've got another one. This one here has been scanned in. So this may have come in as a bit of paper and it's been scanned in. You can see I can't select the text here. Okay. Same process as before though, to make the process really simple and easy. We paste that into the same folder. It will be picked up. The information will be stripped from there, and you will see down the bottom here, we've now had that go through, and we've got an XML out the other end. This XML, despite it being a completely different document, has been produced in the same way with the same fields. You'll see it's got less line items down here, but we have the same information to upload into our application. So how do we actually then create the fields and take the information off these documents in the templates? So for this we use something called our OCR developer. So let me open that up now. And here what you'll see is a very simple interface that we can actually use. So here you will see we've got a very simple user interface, and what we can do is we can go and one of the documents from before. So let's take this Microsoft document that we saw, and here is the template and how it looks and how I edit it. So on the right hand side here I have what the document looks like in its native format, so I can view that and see what it looks like. In the middle here is the actual text that's been taken from the document, and as you can see we've already filled in all the information on here and picked up the actual individual fields. On the left hand side here we have what our what our XML and our tags that we need to pick up. So these are all the fields that we have to pick off a particular invoice document. Okay. So once we've created all of these and filled them all in, this will then go on to create an XML file that is an internal XML. So if I take a look at that, what we can see here is there is the sample XML that will be sent through to the LaserNet solution. Now, this XML is not what the ERP system needs. It's not what the ERP system needs it to look like. That will need something completely different. So we do that and we create that. If we go back to our LaserNet solution, inside our form engine here, which is what this little box is. So this relates to this tab down here on the left-hand side, and you can see here we've got one particular form. And what that's doing, you will recognize here the actual tags, the internal XML that's being produced. And here on the right-hand side is the final XML that needs to go to the application. So with lots of fields that potentially could be filled in if we needed them to. To be able to update, so let's say we've got this total amount here, all we have to do is drag and drop this over onto the right-hand side to the relevant field where it's actually needed. So now that tag is related to here, and it will produce the total in that field every time. So again, very, very simple setup to get that going. This process here is a one-time process, because once I've mapped all the tags here to my final output, I won't need to do it for every single form that needs to come through. So now let's go back to our demonstration process. And here we mentioned a moment ago, what if we've got a document that doesn't actually fit? So this is a new document that's come into the organization. It's not recognized and won't be recognized by the OCR solution. However, we want to be able to set it up as quickly as we can to take the data off, and we want that process to be really simple. So let's do the same as we did before. So if we copy this into our input folder, you'll see it will get picked up. The data will then be actually extracted off it. It will go through the OCR engine, but it will not recognize. So here you will see it's gone through, because we saw it actually move, but it's gone into what's called a paused state, because we don't recognize what this particular document is. How do we go and have a look at that? Well, if we go into our actual client here and click refresh, so this is our LaserNet client, which is where documents come if they're not recognized or if there's a problem with them, etc. So here we have it in a particular pause state. From here I can see, if I click on it, we can see what the document looked like. So I can say, right, yep, we do need that document and we need to process it. So now what I do is I click on this little button called View at the top here. That will go into our OCR editor automatically. It will straight away start filling in some of the information. So I've got the sample down the right hand side. I've got the text that has been taken off that document, so I can see it quite clearly. The first thing I have to do is tell the system what type of document this is. Well, I know that this is an invoice. That will then give me the information that I need to fill in. Something that is now new with version 8 that we've just released, which is a fantastic little addition, is the ability to be able to create a dictionary of information. Now that dictionary allows the system to start learning about documents, to start learning about what information. So for instance, it will try and look for things like the number here and read it next to it, because we've told it in the dictionary it could be here or it could be below. We set that up in the background. So let's see what our dictionary does with this particular document. So if I click understand here, it's going to go away to the dictionary and try and read information off the page. Now, it's done quite well. It's read virtually every bit of information apart from the supplier name. So here we can see, look, it's read the number there and it's taken it next to it. It understood where that was because it read the word number. On the line items here, it's read item number, description, quantity, etc., all the way across here, and has read that information in. It's allowed for the actual bits in the middle, so our header and our footer, so it's removed all of that. Down the bottom here, you'll see it's read the word total, but I can see a small error there, so all I've got to do is just make that box a bit bigger. There we go, so that's that one updated. Everything else looks fine. The only other thing I need to do is add in the supplier name. So here I can actually select, for instance here, an OCR field, or I can select the actual data itself. Now, there is no reference to this, there's no words next to it, so I'm just going to say somewhere there you should find the supplier name. The other thing we have to do is make sure we tell the system what this document is. So we have to recognize it as an individual particular document. So that's what we call a criteria. And here I know the word factory will be there, and so I've now recognized that as an individual document, as you can see that's written up there. And that's it all set up. So all I have to do now is update the actual system and give this one a particular name. So we'll call this one factory and click save, and that's that document done. So I've now created that template in the space of just minutes. What I can do now is if I go back to my particular client, if I now release this back into the system, okay, it will release it back into LaserNet. It won't come back into here now because it will have recognized as a particular job. And if we go down, we can see already it's actually processed that document and created the XML out the other end. Okay, and here if we open this up, we should be able to see, there we go, there's our factory and all the information below the line items that it picked up. So within the space of minutes there, I've taken you through what it looks like for two different types of document, what it looks like if the document doesn't exist, and how we set that up very, very quickly, very, very simply. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope that was useful.
So hopefully that explained how the OCR can be used to pick up the invoices and then put it into the invoice workflow. Is there any questions at all? Don't forget to type any questions into the box if there is any. Okay, well thank you very much for your time. The slide deck will be sent out by Jess. And any questions you do have if you just email them through to Jess, I will answer them and we'll send the information back to you. Okay. Jess is about to put her email into the chat. Okay, so hopefully you should all see that now. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time.